My parents didn't just humiliate my daughter, they erased her from the stage, from the moment, from their hearts, and this time I wasn't going to stay silent. My name is Vivian Locke, and wherever you're watching this, tell me, have you ever watched someone destroy your child in front of a crowd and realize it wasn't the first time they erased you too? The auditorium was packed, parents in dress shoes, teachers nervously fixing clipboards, kids buzzing in sparkly costumes. It was the middle school's annual talent showcase. Iris, my daughter, 12 years old, was third on the list. She clutched her violin case like it was armour, her hands visibly shaking. I leaned over and whispered, "You've got this, baby." She nodded, but I could see her scanning the crowd. And that's when she saw them. My parents, her grandparents, sitting front and centre like royalty on Judgment Day. I hadn't invited them. They hadn't spoken to me in months, but somehow they always managed to show up when Iris was performing, like clockwork, like they were checking to see if she'd fail like I once did. 2 notes, that's all Iris played before she froze. Her bow trembled mid-air, her shoulders hunched. I recognised it instantly. Stage fright. Triggered by those eyes. My mother leaned into my father and hissed loudly enough for half the auditorium to hear. She's just like her mother, weak, embarrassing. And then, God help me, my father stood up. He didn't clap, he didn't encourage. He turned to the MC and said, "End it, she's wasting everyone's time." Gasps rippled. Iris dropped her bow. A teacher rushed to mute the mic. The curtains began to lower, and I was frozen. I shoved my way through the crowd. By the time I got to the stage, Iris had already stepped down. Her face was red, trembling. "I wanted to make them proud," she whispered, choking back tears. "I thought maybe this time they'd stay to watch." I didn't answer, I just held her, but something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Because this wasn't the first time I had been pushed off a stage by those same people. It was just the first time they did it to my daughter. And unlike before, I had power now. That night, after Iris fell asleep still clutching her violin, I poured a glass of wine, walked into my office, and opened a fireproof folder I hadn't touched in 6 years. Inside, signed contracts, legal filings, and documents that, if used properly, would do far more than embarrass my parents. They'd end them. People watch revenge stories for drama. But this one was mine. And it wasn't just revenge, it was reckoning. I didn't sleep that night. After Iris cried herself to sleep, I just sat there, watching her chest rise and fall, violin still in her hands like a broken promise. I kept thinking, they didn't just shut her down, they shut me down again. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a one-time thing, this was a pattern, a legacy of erasure. I went down to the storage closet, far corner under the loose floorboard, pulled out a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside, a few photos, my birth certificate, and one folder I knew I'd kept for a reason. Cream-coloured, legal-sized, labelled Emancipation Override 2002. I opened it, and there it was. A signed affidavit from my parents, filed in court when I was 16, stating that they no longer claim legal or custodial responsibility for Vivian Locke due to moral and behavioural conflict with family values. It was cold, clinical, filed just days after my grandmother died, before I even had a chance to grieve her. You see, my grandmother had left me a trust, but only if I remained under my parents' guardianship until 18. So what did they do? They signed me away, erased me on paper, just to keep the money. If you're still watching this, I need to ask you something straight from the gut. Have you ever found out your own parents chose wealth over you? If so, say it. Say it in the comments. Because no one talks about this kind of betrayal, but we need to. We have to. I remember the day they handed me the letter. I was told to pack. No discussion, no yelling, just dismissal. And the worst part? I believed I deserved it. I thought maybe I had been too emotional, too different, too much. But holding that paper again, this time as a grown woman, a mother, I finally saw it for what it was. A business decision. They didn't cut me off to teach me a lesson. They did it to steal what was mine. And now they were circling Iris the same way, smiling on the outside, poison underneath. But this time I had receipts. Legal, public, documented receipts. And I was done playing the quiet daughter. They had erased me with a signature. I was about to write my name back, in capital letters, on everything they thought they still controlled. By morning, the video had already started making rounds. Someone in the audience had filmed it. My mother's hissed insult, my father's public shutdown of a child, the stunned silence that followed. You could see Iris's face crumple mid-bow. You could hear the music stop like it had been yanked out of the air. It didn't go viral yet, not national, not trending. But I knew the algorithm of shame. It would climb. And I wasn't going to wait for sympathy. I wasn't here for outrage. I was here for restructuring. I slipped into my home office and shut the door, pulled out the key to the locked drawer most people never noticed. Inside, a single black binder, velvet cover, gold lettering, Project Halcyon. 6 years ago, right after Iris was born, I started building a backup world, not because I expected applause, because I expected them to come back. My parents always hated silence unless they controlled it. And I knew deep down, one day they'd turn on her like they turned on me. I wanted her to have a fortress I never had. So while they ignored me, I bought the very school they boasted about in holiday cards. Haven Arts Academy. Not outright, of course. I set up a holding company, recruited a few quiet allies, slowly acquired shares until I became the majority stakeholder. All under the name LKM Holdings, an acronym they'd never notice. I funded music rooms, staff salaries, rebuilt the curriculum. I made sure every student got access to real, sustainable arts education, even the ones like Iris who didn't come from approved bloodlines. But I never put my name on a single plaque. Because it wasn't about being seen, it was about being ready. And now the board would answer to me. By noon, I had scheduled a mandatory school-wide assembly for Friday. Students, staff, parents, no agenda posted. Just a line at the bottom, attendance required, executive directive, LKM. The principal called twice. I didn't answer. I needed the silence to stretch. Because when people don't know what's coming, they show their truest faces. And my parents had always worn theirs too proudly. That night, Iris sat at the piano, playing softly to herself. I didn't tell her about the plan. Not yet. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about truth and power. And a name they tried to strip off my birth certificate. They took me out of their lives with a signature, now I was going to sign them out of mine. Permanently. Friday came fast. The gymnasium was packed. Folding chairs filled with parents whispering, teachers exchanging glances, students craning their necks. No one knew exactly why they'd been summoned. But my parents were there, of course. Front row, as always, like they were still the monarchs of this place, my mother in her Sunday pearls. My father with that same smug cane he used like punctuation. They didn't know what was coming, and I didn't plan on softening the blow. I stepped onto the stage, black blazer, hair tied back, no podium, just a single microphone and the hum of a crowd unsure how to breathe. "Good afternoon," I said, voice steady. "My name is Vivian Locke. Some of you know me as Iris's mother, but today I'm speaking as something else." Behind me, a projector screen flickered on, a company logo, LKM Holdings, then Haven Arts Academy, then shareholder ownership structure. A few teachers gasped. 6 years ago, I became the majority stakeholder of this institution. I've funded it, restructured it, and watched over it, not from a stage, but from every seat where a child sat, hoping to be heard. My father leaned forward, his face tightening. My mother clutched her purse. But today, I continued, I'm not here to talk about funding. I'm here to talk about legacy, specifically how it's used to excuse cruelty. I clicked again. The video played, from the talent show. My mother's voice, sharp and cutting. She's just like her mother, weak. My father's interruption. End it. She's wasting everyone's time. You could hear Iris's bow hit the floor. You could hear my breath catch from behind the curtain. You could hear every lie about "we only want what's best" crumble in real time. Silence. Then I held up the folder, the one I'd pulled from storage. This is a legal affidavit signed by Edward and Marlene Locke, my parents, filed in 2002. It states they relinquished all legal responsibility for me at 16. They did this to bypass a trust intended for me by my grandmother. Gasps. Actual gasps. They didn't raise me, they erased me, and last week they tried to do the same to my daughter, publicly, without shame. I turned to face them. My mother looked like she might speak. I raised a hand. This is not a courtroom. This is a school, but it's also a place of consequence. Security guards stepped forward, not aggressive, just present. Effective immediately, you are stripped of all advisory titles and privileges. Your honorary contributions will be reviewed for conflict of interest. Your portraits will be removed, your names deleted from any wall they were carved into. And then I turned to the crowd. We do not teach shame here, not anymore. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone in the back clapped. Then more and more, until the room thundered, not in anger, not in pity, but in something far more powerful, recognition. 2 weeks later, we returned to the same auditorium. No forced applause this time, no false smiles, just rows of students, teachers, and parents, some still stunned, most still processing. But the air was lighter, brighter even. At the front of the stage was a new podium, a fresh blue banner that read, "Young Voices Assembly, for those who refuse to be silenced." I stood behind it just long enough to say, "I'd like to introduce the new Director of Student Arts Engagement, Iris Locke." Gasps rippled again, this time not from shock but disbelief. Then awe. She stepped up slowly, in a navy dress she'd picked herself, hair brushed back, chin lifted just enough. She wasn't shaking this time. "I'm 12, she said softly, "so I know some people will think I'm too young to have a voice that matters. But sometimes, when adults stay quiet too long, kids have to speak first." The room was dead silent. A few students in the back teared up. A teacher near me whispered, "She sounds just like her mother." But she didn't. She sounded like herself, whole, unapologetic. And as she spoke about building practice rooms for kids who couldn't afford lessons, about creating space where no one would be mocked for missing a note, I realised something. I'd spent years building a fortress to protect her, but she didn't want a fortress. She wanted a door. That afternoon, Iris met with a team of counsellors, student leaders, and local musicians to form what would become the Iris Initiative, a school-wide programme teaching creative self-expression and emotional resilience. Kids who once ate lunch alone now signed up for open mic night. Students who never raised their hands began writing poetry. One boy built his own instrument from scrap wood, played it at the next assembly, got a standing ovation. And through it all, Iris led, not loudly but clearly. She listened, she encouraged, she helped them believe they belonged. Meanwhile, I stayed in the background, exactly where I wanted to be. I was still CEO, still signing paychecks. But I didn't need a title to feel seen anymore. The old portraits of my parents had been removed. In their place, a single framed photo, Iris on stage, mid-performance, bow in hand, eyes fierce. Beneath it, a brass plaque that read, "Let them hear you." And still, even with all the change, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss something. Not them, not the family that cut me out with a legal form, but the idea of what family could have been. So when Iris tugged on my sleeve one morning and said, "There's a place I want you to see," I followed her without question. We drove across town to a boarded-up building, an old community arts centre I hadn't seen in years. "This is where I first learned violin," she said, before they shut it down, before anyone told me I wasn't worth hearing. She looked at me with this quiet, unshakable fire. "Can we fix it?" We didn't ask permission. We bought the building, restored the roof, rebuilt the stage, reopened every shuttered room. Funded completely by me, not the school, not a trust, just me. And carved above the doors in bold metal lettering, the Iris Lock Centre for Girls Who Refuse Silence. Opening day, the line wrapped around the block, mothers holding daughters' hands, grandmothers crying behind sunglasses, and Iris, my Iris, cut the ribbon with a confident smile and whispered, "Think Grandpa and Grandma are watching?" I looked at her, proud and unflinching. I hope they are, because legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you build when they try to bury you. The letter came on a Thursday. No return address. Just my name, typed in sharp black font across a plain envelope. At first I thought it might be something school-related, a legal form, a parent complaint, another donation request. But the handwriting on the card inside was unmistakable. It was my father's. The words were surprisingly neat, not shaky, not rushed. "Vivian, I watched the ribbon cutting on TV. I saw Iris smile. I saw you behind her, and for the first time, I understood something. You were never weak. You were surviving in a way I refuse to see. Mark still doesn't get it, but I do. I wish I had known how to love you better. I don't expect a response. I just hope, maybe someday, she'll forgive me. I'm sorry. Dad." I read it twice, then a third time, folded it gently, slid it back into the envelope, and felt nothing. Not anger, not relief, not even the ache of something unfinished, just a kind of clarity, like the final puzzle piece didn't belong in the picture anymore, and that was okay, because by the time his apology came, I had already done the healing myself. The spaces they hollowed out in me, Iris and I had filled them, together. He wasn't there when she cried herself to sleep, wasn't there when I fought to keep her name on the recital list, wasn't there when she stood on stage and redefined leadership at 12 years old. And if he truly saw what we built, then he also saw this. We didn't just survive, we reclaimed. Mark never reached out, but word got around he'd applied for another teaching job in a neighbouring county. Didn't get it. The board had seen the footage. No one wanted his kind of discipline near children again. As for the pension my father had relied on, it remained frozen, a direct result of misuse, all by the book. Meanwhile, Iris's story aired on national morning news. She sat on a couch beside me, bright-eyed, hands folded. The anchor leaned in and asked, "So Iris, what did it feel like to be the girl who stood up?" She smiled, calm, poised, unshaken. "I didn't stand up," she said. "I just stopped sitting down for people who never deserved my silence. I wept, quietly, not from pain, but from awe. This little girl, the one they said wasn't ready, wasn't strong, wasn't enough, she had become a fire they could no longer control, and that was enough." We went on to build 2 more centres under her name, each one buzzing with music, murals, slam poetry nights, dance studios, each one filled with girls who walked in thinking they were too small to matter, and walked out knowing better. Eventually, I stepped back, let Iris lead, and when the next generation of girls walked through those doors, eyes wide, shoulders heavy, I watched her meet them with the same open arms I once gave her and say, "I know what it feels like. You're safe now." So, if you've ever been erased, replaced, or silenced, tell me, who helped you find your voice again? Drop their name in the comments below, or just say, "I made it," because someone out there needs to know they're not the only one. And if no one's ever said it to you, I'm proud of you for surviving. We both are. Vivian. and Iris.